the third Prime Minister of Uganda, Paulo Muwanga. Paulo Muwanga is the third Prime Minister of Uganda. He has served Uganda since independence in several positions. He served as a facto president and later as a prime minister in Tito Okello's government. When you hear politicians talking about working together in the interest of the nation, or what they call the national interest, then you know that that is a gentleman agreement asking for you as opposition to scratch the back of those who are in power at that moment, and they will scratch your back. Sometimes we fail to understand what is working together for national interest. Of course, if you don't scratch my back, I'm not going to scratch your back, and that is what they know. You know, all these prime ministers who came and went, they did a marvelous job. They did their job with all their hearts. They were combining politics with the love for their families. And if you see some of them, like Paulo Muwanga, is a man who loved his job, and he loved to combine that job with the love for his family. We have had a lot of people saying there were people who didn't like him in Uganda, and there were a lot of people who like him somewhere else. The Cholas like him for whatever reason, I don't know. I cannot give you an answer. He was not a bad person in the first place, but everybody has their shortcomings. And when Tito Okello came to power, he appointed him as the prime minister. And something happened on the way. Something happened from the reliable source. It seemed as if the NRA delegation that was negotiating peace in Nairobi became very smart. They put pressure on Tito's government to get Paulo Muwanga removed from that position. They knew by removing Paulo Muwanga from that position, they would have weakened the bargaining point bargaining power of Tito Okello. Paulo Muwanga is a heavyweight. When it came into liberation of Uganda, he contributed a lot. When it came into negotiation, he knows exactly which button to press. And he's a man who never changed his goalpost for no apparent reason. If he changed a goalpost, then you know exactly that there is something that is going to happen. And he managed to combine the job he was doing and bringing up his family. His family. And if you look at a man with 16 children, 16, who have become, most of them, very responsible people. You have 𝐏𝐫𝐢𝐦𝐴 Muwanga, who became the first black female investment banker. To head a Fortune 500 company. You then have the 𝐿𝐾𝐻𝑖𝑛𝑎 Muwanga, who became prominent international politics and governance consultant. That is when you begin to realize that politics is nice when you combine it with a family. Now, as a consultant, she worked for Rockefeller Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Foundation, the Mandela Foundation, the World Bank, and the Africa Development Bank. And then you have Tina Muwanga, an architect based in Cape Town, South Africa. Based in Cape Town, South Africa. She is a prominent lady who owns her own company, the TMA company, and responsible for various projects in and around Africa, to mention a few. Then you understand what sort of a man our Prime Minister was. He was a political giant. He was very powerful. Sometimes, if you are very powerful, that power you have becomes your weakness. Because it changes your behavior. And as we all know, the Prime Minister was a nice person. But sometimes, when he shows you his real color, then you understand, then you know that is not nice at all. Also with his fellow politicians. Sometimes he's hot-headed. and you hear people talking about how he handled fellow colleagues and politicians. The most famous part of his action was the Nile Mansion incident with the second Prime Minister. That is something that everybody remembers because it was being talked about in the corridors. And then you understand. That is when you understand that you can be kind, you can be nice, but sometimes things can run out of hand. Things can go out of hand. And that type of behavior, you cannot run away from it. You cannot run away from it. Removing Paulo Muwanga and replacing him with Waligo was already a sign that something was going to happen. You see, when I first talk about politicians coming together and working in the interest of the nation, it means you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Because I remember reading somewhere, the son of Paulo Muwanga was very clear. He said his father had been working with Obote, but both men didn't like one another. That is when you realize, said, why should you work for someone for so long when you don't like him? It puzzled me. And I don't get the politics behind it. Sometimes I just sit back and laugh. But there's something very strange going on in this world. When you talk about working in national interest, and when you talk about making peace with one another, even though you don't like that person, then it does not make sense to me. How are you going to be effective as the Minister of Finance or as a foreign minister if you don't like the person you're working for? Is there a hidden guidelines for working in national interest? I don't think so. Unless we come clean out and tell the people the truth, we will never know what went wrong and what is going wrong. Because if you don't like that person, I don't see any reason why you should waste your time working for him until you fall dead. It does not make sense. You know, all these people have a story. All these prime ministers, presidents have a story. And we respect them for their service. And we respect them because they are trying to bring us together. But we also know they could do better. They could do better. Let's hope, as I go further, looking at the prime ministers of Uganda, we'll find something in between telling us who they are, what they did, and what they know. They will always be in our mind. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. I will